I will answer them.
Okay. And let's don't walk over each other.
Or do and then apologize.
Well, sometimes I get excited.
No way.
We'll have to raise our hand.
Are we rolling? So, Mom,
Okay.
happy birthday.
Thank you.
So, how old are you tomorrow?
Oh my gosh, 81. 81.
81. You know, I'd love to know some of your favorites. One of the things that we talked about the other day on the phone was you love purple. You've always told me you love purple, but why? Where did that come from?
Well, when we started dating in what, 1952 or 3,
53, yeah.
I found out that was Buddy's favorite color. So I kind of made a point to pick out that color and things, and he liked it.
So, Dad, why was it your favorite color?
I really can't tell you except that I had eyes for this beautiful girl, young girl, and she just looked extraordinarily beautiful in purple.
So it was what? It looked good on Mom.
Uh-huh.
And what, didn't you tell me about an outfit that you bought?
I remember it. I remember several. Yes, I had a big gourd, and back then we wore long, and we wore Bobbie socks up, tall Bobbie socks, and loafers. But the skirt was long, and it was gourd. It was full, and it was corduroy.
Corduroy
like velvet.
purple.
And then I had a lighter shade sweater, and we wore these little white collars. They called them Dickies. It was a fake went inside your sweater.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it looked like you had a blouse on under it, but it was just the collar. And I wore the sweater, and he loved that outfit.
And
That was my all-time favorite.
And then,
so when you saw her in purple, then that just became, because I know over the years you bought her purple flowers and you bought all kinds of things in purple.
Yeah, that's why we like purple.
So what other things from your dating time do you guys remember, favorite
He
memories?
was the first boy I ever dated, and he was older, actually. Well, not a year and a half, but we were in the same grade. But he had moved from Savannah. We were in this little town of Hinesville, and he was like a city boy. I mean, he didn't even wear jeans. Back then, all the guys wore jeans. They thought he was kind of a sissy because he wore gray flannel pants and a pink shirt and white bucks. That was in the 50s.
Khakis.
And he wore khakis to school, but he dressed up in gray flannel and pink shirt. And but anyway, what was the question?
What were your favorites?
Well, we started dating, and so he was kind of I had never dated anybody, and we went to the teen club, and that's where we of course at school we saw each other, but then he started going to the teen club, and he asked me out, and I'll have to say, well, I'll have to ask my mother. I don't know, and I was saying it because I wasn't sure. I had not dated anybody, and so anyway, so we started dating. We were in 9th grade, huh?
Mm-hmm. Didn't I ask your mom and dad permission at a basketball game
Maybe.
to date?
I played basketball.
You introduced me to
and
them.
He played, we both played basketball.
But I drove because I had a driver's license.
So
And so what besides just being so cute, because I've seen the pictures.
He was pretty cute.
He's still a good looking man.
And he had a car.
And he had a car. But when you talked to him, were there things about him that just made him more attractive? Like once you got to know him?
Yeah, he was fun. And he was, when we got to know each other.
Are you talking about kissing?
No, everything about him I liked. But I had girlfriends that we hung around. See, there was 3 of us. And he would run around. He hung with us because he wanted to be with me, and I didn't let go of the girls. We just still stayed together. Remember? Mm-hmm. And we had lunch. We, hung out all the
So
time.
he was one of the girls.
So he just came around with all of it, with my girlfriends and I. And
Dad, when you picked up Mom, I remember you telling us about how I think you had to clean your vehicle up. Can you tell us a little bit about that background as you started to get ready to pick Bobbie Dene up?
Okay, when we first started dating, we dated in my father's 1955 Ford, four-door, and it was a really nice car.
With the car, yeah.
But this is classic. I started with the crab traps, and I needed a truck to take the crabs from Colonel's Island to Yellow Bluff, where they picked it up. The
Fish
shrimp
camp
boats
was, yeah.
landed, and they would weigh all the barrels of crab that I brought over, and but I had to wash that truck out, and the smell in the summer would get very, very offensive.
Oh,
Oh, right, because of the heat.
Yeah, we would go to the drive-in theater, and as soon as we parked, the cars next to us would be moving over.
it smelled awful. He would put bleach in it.
I
everything.
bleached, I did everything I possibly could.
But you obviously tolerated it, Mom.
Oh yeah, well we
Inside the
smelled it
cab,
in
it
the
wasn't
cab.
that bad.
Okay.
It was outside.
It was the
around-
bed of the truck where the crabs were at.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
A really funny story, we picked up a guy who was hitchhiking.
It was
And
something,
he
yeah.
rode about 3 or 4 blocks. And he was beating on the top of the truck. He said, "Let me out."
It smelled terrible. It really did. Yeah, and it was
Oh.
really in the heat. But tell him he got up how early to. He
Oh,
pulled
I-
these traps twice a day.
I got up
before
at 3
school.
o'clock every morning and went and got
The boat out.
went and picked up this little black boy that helped me. They did the bait as we went, and I had 50 crab traps that I would pull in the morning and 50 crab traps in the afternoon. Then I'd take all those crabs and take them over to Sunbury for sale. So anyway, the truck was. We did everything we could to, to
How that smell, but
but it was just it was sort of like swimming against the incoming
And how old
tide.
were you during that time?
yeah.
I
'Cause
was
didn't you get a
14.
Yeah, so you got a.
Wow.
yeah
Well,
Tell
how
him
good.
what the name of the boat was.
the Bobbie Dene.
He had it painted on the boat.
It was Daddy had it built for me to pull the crab traps. It was 24 feet long, made out of solid cypress, and it was quite the boat. But
That's a big boat, 24
yeah, we
feet.
christened it the Bobbie Dene.
Oh.
But he got up that early before school every day, and had to do that routine every morning and then after school every evening.
And you had to do it. If you didn't, all the crabs that were in your trap would eat each other.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you'd lose your
They were
product and
alive.
everything.
Yeah.
So you had to do. Your timing was set.
Absolutely.
You know. So you had Mom, and you had crabbing, and you had sports.
Uh-huh.
You know, and you had
Oh, I
school.
played football. I played
So-
on the first football team.
So you guys had busy lives. I want to back up just a bit and ask about your names.
Okay.
So it's interesting because George is an important name on your side of the family, but George Washington was the name of the most important man in
Bobbie's,
Mom's
yeah.
life.
Yeah, George
And so
Washington Floyd.
Floyd.
So we have a lot of Georges.
We have a lot of Georges. So Dad, where did George come from on your side?
My father was George F. Blake Sr.
Yeah.
I was George F. Blake Jr. And George was George F. Blake the third.
The turd, right. So, so my question is though, where did George come from? Were there Georges before the three of you guys? Where did Willie's parents come up with the first George?
Well, they were English,
Irish and English.
Irish and English.
My
I
father
don't
was.
know, but you know what's okay.
What's interesting about the Georges is I got the name Buddy because my mom and dad were party goers,
Yeah.
and they lived the good life,
Well, they're
and so they always had these toddies. They called them toddies for the body.
Cocktail. And
So,
Yeah,
so
happy
around 3 o'clock, you know,
Yeah.
they would kind of watch the watch, and I don't know if it was 3 or 5, but anyway, the cocktail time came, and what they did was somebody said, well, you know, this is for George, and
Jan.
they brought it to me. My sister brought it to me.
Oh, okay.
This was
Okay.
in Victoria. George was a baby in the playpen then. And Jan was 2 or 2.5, whatever. And so somebody handed Jan the drink and said, take this to George. Well, they
Meaning
meant
Willie.
Granddaddy George. Well, Jan took it to George.
Little
baby George. And we looked over and he is just lapping up.
Bourbon and ranch water.
Right, yeah.
He was a whiskey drinker back
He
then.
was like,
He started early.
so we all went running. So we
And Bobbie
never did
Dene
find
came
it.
from your father, Robert, right?
Well, mother's name is Earl Dean.
Right.
And Robert was,
Bobbie.
Bobby. So they thought I was going to be a boy, and they were going to name me Bobbie Dene. And so when I was a girl, they just named me that anyway and changed the spelling.
It's cute.
Hey, while y'all are talking about your parents and where your names came from, Dad, why don't you take a few minutes, tell us about Sarah and Willie, and then Mom, tell us about your parents.
Well, my dad was I grew up during World War II. And so I actually have a memory of when Roosevelt spoke on the radio. In those days, we had this big console radio, and we all sat around the radio and listened to radio shows like we do with television when television finally came out. But I distinctly remember my father calling me in because the President of the United States was going to speak to the nation, and that's when we were attacked at Pearl Harbor.
Wow.
And I remember that. That's probably one of my earliest memories. But my dad was called Willie or George, and my mother I call Sarah, which is very unusual. But I had a very unusual mother. She was always the center of attention, and she was funny, and she danced, and I distinctly remember after we moved to the island, she was doing the hula.
We had pictures.
And we had pictures of her doing the hula. But anyway, but I called her. I didn't call her Mom. Like Bobbie, I had a grandmother that sort of raised me, and I called her Wheezy Mama. And so that she was kind of the one that raised me. My mother was the center of attention and the party girl, and so
We all lived together, so they
yeah,
could leave
we
the
all
kids.
lived together. Yeah,
And
3
Okay.
generations.
They had the freedom to go out.
And that was Louisa and Papa. You called him Papa.
Right.
And what was his official name? What are all their names?
His
Robert
name was
J. Robert Creamer.
James Robert Creamer.
And then Louisa Creamer.
Louisa, yeah.
That was Sarah's parents.
That was Sarah's
And
parents.
then Willie's mother was Catherine, right?
Right.
Yes.
So I called Sarah all her life. I mean, but that's what she wanted.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't want to be called. I mean, she could have easily said, call me Mother, and I would have called her Mother. But anyway,
But Buddy and Pat called us Sarah.
Both-
Everybody
both
called
of
us.
us.
Y'all called us Sarah
Everybody.
We called
Yeah.
her Sarah.
all our life.
So-
yeah.
And Willie, we called them Sarah
Yeah.
and Willie.
Sarah
back.
and Willie, yeah.
Yeah. But his name was George. And I think it's kind of interesting back in my family, my granddaddy's grandparents from Ireland, his name was George Francis Hammonds.
wow.
He had the same,
And I'm George Francis Blake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
George Francis Hammonds is who?
His granddaddy George Floyd's.
So George went back generations in your family too.
Two.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
But he had the middle name Francis. I've never
wow,
seen that
that's
before.
amazing.
But that was Granddaddy George Floyd's granddaddy, his mother's parents.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why, after I became Buddy, they nicknamed me Buddy, because I was everybody's buddy.
Yes.
I like people. I genuinely do. And so that nickname stuck with me. Even once we moved from Savannah, where I grew up, to Colonel's Island, you know, and then we were going to school in Dorchester, Georgia, a one-room school. I went from this big school in Savannah to a one-room school, and there was 5 people in the 6th grade.
Wow.
That was at Midway.
At Midway.
No, in Dorchester.
Dorchester.
Yeah.
Well, how old were you when you moved to the island?
11.
It was a summer home first.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then when they decided to go live there full time, you were 11, so you
Yeah.
had to go to school there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you were originally born in Turtle Creek, right, Mom?
No, Taylor's.
Taylor Creek. I thought it was Turtle. Sorry.
Uh-huh.
Taylor Creek. And you have that great
Taylor's.
book.
Taylor's. I have a book on the family. I have 2 books on Taylor's Creek and the community around. But that's a long story about Taylor.
That's a
Taylor.
very
But-
interesting story.
But I mean,
But Taylor's Creek.
but the
I was
life that
born-
you were born into
Yeah,
is
well,
interesting.
see, mother married young at 16, and she had me at 6, 17, and then she and my dad, Robert, my real dad, Robert Berry, they were divorced by the time I was a year old.
Mhm.
So mother and I moved back with my grandparents. So they were like, I call them mom and daddy. I call mother, and mama, and they more or less raised me. And even after, when I was 4, she married Daddy Harold Guyett, and then I still spent a lot of time with my grandparents.
Mhm.
And so they more or less raised me, but Taylor's Creek. So I was born in 1938 in Taylor's Creek. So in 1941, the government bought all that land, and of course the war had started. Right?
Yeah.
Before.
Started in December
all
of
that
41.
area, everybody had to sell. The government bought the farms, my granddaddy's farm and all, and everybody had to move. So it was in Liberty County. So we were still in Liberty County. We moved into Hinesville, which was a town. And Fort Stewart took over all that area that had been Taylor's Creek and several little communities out there. And I was born in 38. We moved from there, had to move in 1941. So I was 3 when we moved from Taylor's Creek.
But now there's a couple of particulars that you've shared with me before that I think is awfully cute about your personality when you were a little girl. A couple things you've told me is that you never said ain't, and you did
Well-
not like to get dirty.
No, we were in the country. We really lived in the country and played out in the dirt, and they all teased me, all my cousins, everybody said. I kept running in to wash my hands because I didn't like to be dirty, and you know, and somehow, and the country we all said ain't. I never, ever said ain't. I don't know why. I somehow must have known it was not a proper word. I think it's in the dictionary now.
You were
but-
just proper from the beginning, no matter where you were
well,
born.
I don't
Very
know if I'd
proper.
go that far, but I was maybe a little more particular then. But anyway, I was
But
spoiled.
that was just, you were a little girl.
And I was spoiled because mother had all of her brothers and sisters. I was more like a sister. My Aunt Betty, my favorite aunt, she was just 8 or 9 years older. So when I was born, she was still a little girl, and so we kind of were like sisters. And even Lori and Lois, who were
Right.
older, I was still more like a sister than a niece, I think, to them. So
So I just got a cornbread. I just got the iron
I
skillet that was
know.
Stella's. So that's
Baby.
well, Stella cooked cornbread in it, and then
and Betty had it.
and then Aunt Betty got it from her
Then I
mama,
had it, yeah.
and then Betty gave it to you, and now I'm the 4th generation to make cornbread in it.
That's right.
And some of the things about Mama, Stella, and the house, and George Washington.
Yeah.
And you told me some stories about how they do the sugarcane crush.
Well, when they moved, I don't remember Taylor's Creek. I know my granddaddy was a farmer there too. And he built the little house they lived in. Then when we had to, in 1941, when we moved into Hinesville, he bought a farm. It had a lots of land and a big old farmhouse. And
2-story.
so we lived, you know, we were still, of course, living with them, and Laurie was still at home, and Betty and Bob were still at home. But yeah, my granddaddy he grew sugar cane and made homemade cane syrup, and he grew cotton and tobacco and had a big old tobacco barn. And
But when they cut the sugar cane, did you tell me that like everybody made cane sugar together?
well, I know that once he had a building that held this huge vat. They built a fire under it, so it was like a big iron kind of a vat, and it was big. And once they started cooking this, they had to maintain it day and night. So the neighbors would come around and sit up with them, and they'd sit up out there and
But you think all of the cane sugar in there was Granddaddy's?
oh, I think so.
It was all great
But
Granddaddy's,
he
but
might have shared. Maybe they came and helped because he
Okay.
had lots of it.
it was a community event
Yes, it was.
when you made the
And
sugar
it took
syrup.
several days because they got the juice from the cane, and then they poured it in this big vat. Then at the bottom there was rock candy we got to get, the kids got. But anyway, it had, once they started cooking, they had to maintain the fire till they finished all the.
And did Dolly the mule have something to do?
Dolly had
Dolly
an
the
old
mule.
red mule named Dolly, and well, you'd have to see this contraption.
Round and round she went.
But there was a thing, there were 2 wheels, so you fed the sugar cane into these 2 crushing wheels, and underneath this thing caught the juice, and there was Dolly, the mule, went round and round and made the wheels turn, 2 big wheels that, you know,
So
and
she-
then
she-
somebody had to feed the cane stalk in, and then when whatever the container was full, they poured that juice into the great big thing.
Where they were cooking it.
Cooking.
So it was actually 2 processes.
Right. So
And
it
then
took
And what
several people
the final product was this
sugar cane.
sugar
Syrup.
Syrup.
It
Syrup.
was syrup.
Cane syrup.
And then you guys used that to sweeten.
Oh, it was delicious. It went on pancakes and cornbread and everything. It was delicious.
So and then after you drained the sugar syrup out of the metal container where you'd been cooking it.
There was rock candy in the bottom that formed. You know, it was good.
It hardened.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
broke
And
it
so
up.
and then the kids got to eat the rock candy at the
Yeah.
bottom.
Yeah.
So was that kind of a treat? And did you do that every year?
Yeah, every year. And the stalks, after the juice was out, there was these stalks, and they fed those to the cows, and you know, they would pile it up. And
Use everything.
probably the neighbors all shared, you know, because it was so much of it. I remember the kid we played in it, and it was just,
So how much sugar cane would it come in wagons? I mean,
yeah. they were
everybody
all
would
cut-
bring wagons.
I
had
think he
fields
grew like
of it.
25 acres.
I have no idea about acreage, but it was a lot of sugar cane, and it was, you know, long stalks, and so somebody had to feed the stalks in to get the juice, and somebody had to take it, and somebody had to watch the
And there were
fire.
2 things going on because one was juicing and one was cooking.
And it was a special building out there.
And they saved all the stocks to feed the animals
Right.
later. I mean, nothing was wasted.
Yeah.
What was amazing was to see the operation with the wheels
Yeah.
turning and surely they must have had another mule or somebody
Did they do
that
it every
helped.
year, Mom?
Every year.
Every year they made this, so that
Yeah.
was an annual
There
event.
must
Annual
have
event.
been probably a certain time of the year you plant sugar cane, and like we had peanuts. We grew peanuts, and we would boil them, and like a peanut boiling was an event. The neighbors all came. We had in the evening, and you know, because we like boiled peanuts.
And so, what was your favorite thing to eat back there? Do you like? I remember going to Georgia and certain things I'd love to eat. Was there little things you think about when you see it? And you think about your childhood or growing up in Georgia?
Well, yeah, Mama used to make cobbler all the time.
Since this was a special event for her, what can I share what it was a special event for me? I grew up during the war, and so the transportation system was a horse and carriage, and they delivered milk every morning
in Savannah.
in Savannah, but the big special occasion was when the ice truck came. And they had a sign that you could rotate around, and it would tell the iceman how much ice to deliver to that house,
For an
because
ice
we
box.
had ice boxes, not refrigerators.
Right.
This is before refrigerators, and so all the kids would follow the ice truck, and when you can imagine it's hot in
Had to
Savannah.
ship it off in
You know, we
box.
had no air conditioning, so he would ship with the ice pick, and we would just scramble for the little bits of ice that came off because it was so good. And so there would be like 6 or 7 young boys following the ice truck, and that was a special occasion in Savannah as I was growing up.
And it was horse-drawn.
It was horse-drawn,
And
always.
the- And
horse
the dairy,
drawn.
the milk too.
Yeah, and the horse knew where to go. The guy would get out of the wagon and take so many quarts. He had a thing that he carried it with,
Glass
and
bottles.
he would, it was all glass bottles, and he'd pick up the empties. The horse would walk to the next place. The horse knew what house to stop at.
That's great.
It was amazing. He never stopped going. He would just get out and deliver the things,
go to the
pick up
next
the empty
house.
bottles, and then walk to the next house. And the horse had already gone to the house and stopped and was waiting. It was, I mean, if you think about it, it was an amazing time.
And then there were treats. Wasn't there like an ice cream shop or something
Oh,
in
yeah.
Savannah that
Oh,
you'd
yes.
go to?
Savannah.
That was ice cream was the unbelievable thing that everybody wanted to go to the drugstore
Right.
because we had a soda fountain,
Mhm.
and that's where you got the soda water
Right.
and the ice cream and of course everybody made ice cream themselves. We had ice cream churns, and so that was a
And
special
churn,
thing, yeah, especially during the war. Sometimes the neighbors would come over, and we'd sit there and take turns churning the ice cream, and it was always it was better than what we have today.
Yeah.
It was really
Well,
very
it's
special.
homemade, yeah, it was
All
good.
homemade.
Yeah.
And we had, during the war, things were rationed. So you got coupon books, our parents did. And of course, gas was rationed, and tires and things like that, but also
Sugar,
sugar
butter,
and butter was rationed.
all kinds of
And,
Why were those rationed?
I don't know, George. Maybe they were concentrating on growing other things that were more, I don't know. But in Georgia, the sugar affected the moonshine business. Because they made a lot of moonshine in Georgia, and I remember they were talking about, they had to have sugar for that, so. But it was rationed, and so,
the butter would come. It was white,
well, it was margarine.
and it
wasn't
had a
real
little
butter.
tiny dot during the war, and you punched the dot. It had the dye, yellow dye.
Wow.
And then you would
Makes
take
it
it was all wrapped in plastic, and you had to sit there and mold it to spread
Wow.
the yellow,
Yeah, 'cause
so it
To
looked
make
like
it yellow.
Yeah, it looked like
so it looked
butter.
like butter.
So
But
what
it
was a treat? Like what were some favorite things that you loved or that you did,
Ice
Well-
cream,
right?
soda, an ice cream soda with Coca-Cola and the ice cream together.
Mm-hmm.
That was a
Like-
huge treat,
Yeah.
and it cost a nickel.
Wow.
I remember 5 cents. I went to the movies. The movies cost 11 cents on Saturdays, and I went every Saturday
Wow.
and looked at all. It was a double feature plus all these chapter pictures. And
It's
I would leave at 11 o'clock in the morning and come back at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
All day event.
All day event in the theater, but it was air conditioned. It was the only
So
thing
that was a treat.
that was really,
That's it. Well,
yeah.
see, now he lived in the city in Savannah. I lived in the country.
Right.
In Hinesville, and then out from Hinesville. But But I remember my first bicycle my granddaddy got me. Well, he ordered it from Sears and Roebuck.
Do you know what year that was?
I was probably about 6 or 7.
So that would be.
I was born in 38, so
That was a major
But-
purchase too. They were
Yeah.
Like
they
43.
were not cheap.
about
They were like
44.
$50,
And we-
and $50 was
yeah.
a lot of money then.
I don't know, but my granddaddy got it, and it was red, and we had, and I had an uncle that was only 2 years younger, Alan and I, so we played a lot, cause, I lived with Mom and Daddy, and so we were big buddies, and, we played out in the country, and we had this, it was just dirt road and everything, it was
Georgia Clay, right?
Georgia.
Yeah.
Well, right around there, it wasn't like
Kinda
like
sandy.
dirt. Yeah, sandy. And we called it Pig Turd Lane. I mean, but anyway, and Mom and Daddy, there were not that many people that lived out there then. Just like one neighbor beyond them. So, if a car came, they were coming to see us, or that one person up further.
Now,
But I could ride my bicycle on the little road, and
So, Dad, I remember one story you tell a lot when you were a child and when you moved to Colonel Island about your hunting and the bear. Can you tell the bear story?
I spent a lot of time just sort of roaming and experimenting and look. There were only 5 families that lived on. It was 12 square miles. Colonel's Island is, and it was kind of circular, and anyway, a lot of hogs. I mean, there was no
Wow,
fenced-in
hogs.
laws, and so people would put their hogs on the highway, and so I was carrying my 12-gauge shotgun, and I was going to go out and shoot some squirrel. Is what I did. It was in the afternoon. I'd never seen a bear. I'd never seen a wild animal or anything like that. And so I was sitting on a log waiting for the squirrels to start moving. They see you coming and then they freeze. And so if you're squirrel hunting, you have to wait till they begin to move around. And so I'm just sitting there and I hear this sound. And naturally I just thought it was a hog. And so I stood up and there I was face to face with what was about a 120-pound black bear. They called him a hog bear because the bear lived off those hogs.
oh,
And so I had my 12-gauge shotgun. I started running. I didn't know. We had these huge oak trees on the island, and the first thing I did, I came to the first oak tree, and I thought I'll just climb up. Well, the bear
bears are-
just climbed up.
but they're great climbers.
I mean, it was crazy. I went up to this big branch and I stopped and I thought at that point, the bear is going to be on the ground and that bear just came right up that tree. And so I wound up going out on a limb and here comes this bear. And I mean, I have no weapon, no nothing.
you dropped your gun.
I had to left my gun, yeah. So there I am, face to face with this hog bear. And so what I did was I stood up and I broke a big branch off, as big a limb as I could do, and it was probably about 6 foot long. And I started thrashing the living daylights out of them,
Yelling.
screaming and yelling.
You were hitting the branch you were on,
Right.
Oh, yeah.
but letting
I'm-
the bear know.
Yeah, but I had to go out far enough. I mean, it was the whole limb was moving, and I had to hang on. And at the same time,
Kinda scared
when
the
I
bear.
started beating, the bear stopped,
Yeah.
and he started looking. He was looking at me, sizing me up. I was a lot bigger than he was, but he had these
He would hurt you.
real claws. I mean, you know, and a big mouth with a lot of teeth.
So did he finally go away?
Yes,
Chased him.
he just finally backed off. I
He
mean,
decided you were more trouble than it was
he
worth.
thought I was crazy. Because I was yelling and
You
screaming.
think the bear was right at that
Yeah,
point?
I think I wet my pants. It was, I mean, but he just finally backed off and just, I mean, I think I was too big to eat.
Well, and they didn't have a lot of bears on that.
No, oh, that's very
Do you
extraordinary.
think it would be interesting to tell them how Colonel's Island got its name?
Yeah, it was called Colonel's Island because during the fight for Savannah, a whole group
Civil War.
of Confederate colonels were meeting to discuss whether they wanted to confront Sherman as he came into Midway, and then he'd go on into Savannah. And so they were meeting, it was a war planning meeting, and they had only limited amount of Confederate soldiers to defend Savannah, and Sherman had thousands of
Right.
so the big question was, would they use Fort Morris, which was only about 10 or 12 miles from where we were,
Coast right there.
to defend Savannah, and they all got captured. They had this big meeting in this big house on the island, and a ship, a naval ship, came up the river and caught them,
Wow.
and they were all captured. And from then on, the label was then Colonel's Island.
Wow.
Because they captured all these colonels
What-
and the plans.
What
to
house did
defend
they
Savannah.
meet at? Was it one of the families on the island? I mean, was it standing when you moved on
Yeah, there
to
was-
the island?
There
What
was
that?
there was a big house there, big Victorian.
People used to build it. It was so beautiful with the water, and you know, people would go and build summer homes and go there for summers.
And the river was huge. The North Newport River was probably 400 or 500 yards across. It was I mean, it was deep water. So this Union ship, kind of a battleship, could come in, and
And
they
it was
could,
probably,
they
the house
captured.
was probably right on close to the water.
Yeah,
Because there
Yeah,
was
it
a
was-
mansion. What was the name of that place that was there for so long?
you know what? That's the name of that house where they captured all the colonels. Has slipped my mind over the years, but I remember when we built our house, that was the only house on the North Newport River at the time.
Yours.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I have a question. Tell me about January 9th, 1955. What was that day like, and what did you do?
The day we got married, we slipped off.
What time?
We
trying to get
had tried to get married.
We
Folkestone,
went a couple
Georgia.
of times, and they told us we didn't have the right papers.
Right. We had to
didn't
have a
a
permission.
signature from our parents. Tell them how you got that.
I forged it. My father was a certified public accountant, and he had
A neighbor
he
that
was a
was-
notary public, and so anyway, I watched how my dad documented the things, or maybe it was Mr.
Mr.
Woodall.
Woodall was the notary.
Yeah,
The
we
neighbor.
we were leasing Jay Woodall's, which was a cafe and
And they were running.
gift shop on
And,
Highway 17 with all the traffic going into Florida.
Anyway, Buddy slipped into his office and got this
Notary seal.
seal, put his seal on it, and then we had different people sign our parents'
We
names.
were in typing
And so
class.
okay, time to fess up. Who were the different people? Who signed the marriage
You know
certificate?
what? I don't even remember. It
I
was
don't
our
e-
friends at school.
I don't
Just
either.
friends at school.
We just got different.
Yeah, I bet it was Patty
They
Ann.
Oh, yeah.
signed our parents' name. You know?
Right.
And so we went and they took that. We had a blood test.
So
Buddy
it
found
was
it.
So we
a
went to
stolen
Folkestone,
CPA
Georgia,
steal.
and tried to get married, and I wanted to be brave, and
Oh, Buddy said,
they
"I'll
had
go
to do a
first."
blood test, so I went first and passed out.
Yeah,
Oh.
fainted clean out.
You had to have a blood test to get married.
Yeah.
You
Yeah, I
fainted
did.
over a blood test.
And mother, you still married him?
I did.
Did you hit the floor and hurt
So
yourself?
was that January 9th?
No, we had to do that earlier, I think. It was the day.
So tell me about the day of January 9th. You had the forged.
Wait, and we
Yeah,
Piece of
we had
paper.
the paperwork, so we knew
and
we had permission to get
went
married.
to a
Okay.
justice of the peace.
So we didn't go to Hinesville because they knew us.
Right.
So we had to go to Ludowici, Georgia,
Yeah.
which was 12 miles down the highway.
Okay.
But we
And-
went to a justice of the peace and he took the paper and everything, we got married. But then.
What time of the day was
Did he
that?
question y'all at all?
Yes, he questioned us, and
Y'all
what
scared?
he said was
We
he
were
thought
scared.
I was a soldier.
Cause it was, Fort Stewart was.
Fort
Right.
Stewart was there, and you know, and people did get married young,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
But anyway, we got, you
But
know
what time of day
we were
was
so
it?
scared, Tony, I don't remember.
It was
Okay.
around noon, Tony. 'Cause
Okay.
when we left, I remember we stopped and got Coca-Colas.
Okay.
It was such a, you know, we were
So you
so
got
scared.
married,
Yeah.
and then what did you do when you got back to town?
Well,
We didn't tell
We
anybody.
didn't.
We were just
But
married.
But he got a wedding band and I wore it on dates. See, this is January, and so we didn't tell anybody till April.
Pat was
Pat knew.
Pat knew because she saw the wedding band when I bought it. That
Okay.
we were gonna go sneak off and get married.
His older sister.
So, anyway, it was a busy day, and we had to pick a time to tell. I had already gone into Savannah and signed up to transfer from the Air National Guard to the United States Air Force, and already had an assignment of when I would have to report to San Antonio, and
Well, so we decided, you know, it was April, and so we had a mouthful to tell him, and we decided to stay. On Monday we talked about it. We decided
tell
to
them
stay
what we
home.
told them.
So we would stay home from school on Tuesday and tell everybody we were married. So we had to tell them we're married, we're pregnant with Jan, but he's leaving in 2 weeks to go away
To the Air
to
Force.
the Air Force. He's already signed up. So can you imagine? And we couldn't understand why they were so upset.
Now I have a question to ask, and
Okay.
how did you find private time
We dated.
to
we went
consummate
out.
your
Yeah,
marriage?
we dated. We went
So
to
you
school
consummated
together.
in a vehicle? You
Yes.
vehicle consummated?
Oh yes, we had some wonderful dates.
We had crazy times, but anyhow, that went on. We thought we'd just stay like that till we graduated, and then
Yeah,
we'd tell
then
them
we
we were
tell
married.
them.
But anyhow,
So did you find out you were pregnant? And how did you know you were pregnant?
I was sick, and I knew.
And did your mother not notice?
Well, don't-
She'd have never put it together.
No, but anyway, and then that Tuesday, I remember distinctly because my granddaddy had been in an accident, an automobile accident, and was in the hospital in Statesboro, but he wasn't hurt badly. He was bruised up. So he was coming home that Tuesday morning, but Monday night he died from a blood clot that they didn't know that he had. So we couldn't tell my family.
I'd already told my family.
But I called Buddy, so we didn't tell my family till after the funeral, my granddad's funeral.
That's another story.
So
I-
that
gonna
was-
I have
How'd
a
that
question.
go?
So y'all are married now, right? You haven't told your parents. Pat knows. Maybe just a couple of friends. So how
Well, the ones
is it?
that forged the paperwork.
How is it
Yeah.
walking down the hallway of a high school, right?
Well-
Holding hands.
You know, and married, and just you can't tell anybody.
Well, you know,
Was it fun?
It was.
fun. It was just, you know,
We never thought about pregnancy. I mean, you know.
well, we thought about it, but anyhow,
Buddy didn't.
Buddy,
I didn't.
Buddy did.
I was just really enjoying married
Well,
life.
But at school, see, we lived at home, and so we just went to school like always, and
I was
went
pulling my
home.
crab traps
yeah,
every day.
And and we played, you know, I played basketball, he played football and basketball, and we just did
When I
school
think about
activities.
that occasion, I'm utterly amazed that, you know, the hand of God had to have been on this whole thing, and that's what both of us wanted.
Well, then, but you look back and see how everything
I mean,
went, and then
look at what we did. I mean, you know, my grandfather said, you nailed them. They can't. If they question the you doing the notary public.
Because Mom was pregnant with
She
Jan.
was pregnant, yeah,
First
with
grandchild.
Jan, and
that was a mouthful.
I mean everything, and then the
So, Dad, you
Air
had
Force.
to leave your young wife and
Oh,
go
yes.
off to San Antonio.
yes,
Two
For
weeks
basic.
later, we had 2
for
weeks.
basic training,
Then
13
he
weeks.
went for 3 months basic, and I was home. And then I joined him in Denver, and Jan was born in November in Denver.
And you had been apart for quite some time.
3 months.
3 months.
Three
Hey,
months.
also, I'm just really curious. So, when you did break the news, right, later on, how did it go?
Oh, it was
Oh, it was
bad.
terrible.
Can you give us like,
Oh,
what do you remember, Mom? How did your parents
Oh,
take it?
Mother had
What
fits.
what Earl Dean say?
Oh, she
Woo!
screamed and cried and carried on, but
Screamed.
it was, and like I said, we were going, why is everybody getting so upset? If that had happened to me, I would have had to been carried away in a white coat. I mean, seriously.
So how did Sarah and Willie take it,
Oh,
Dad?
Sarah was in a wheelchair. She had broken her hip.
She tried to poke me with her
With her
crutch.
cane.
You'll never get an education. You're.
Oh my God.
How could you do something this stupid?
Yeah.
But now you have your doctorate.
Yes. Yeah. You'll never get an education.
Yeah.
She cursed me with that. And now I have a doctor's degree.
Right.
Yeah, that she
But
would be very pleased.
It was a day I would not want to relive.
Yeah.
And then, but I tell you what my daddy did.
Yeah.
Willie.
Willie, God bless him. He, after I had told, I had my best friend tell Daddy while I was telling Sarah. And I was so glad to get out of that room with my mother. She had broken her hip
She
and
couldn't
she was
get
on
out
crutches.
of the wheelchair.
And she couldn't get out of the wheelchair.
Yeah.
So if she probably would have attacked me. I don't know. But anyway, Willie says to me, "What are you going to do tonight, son, now that you're married?" So he made one phone call,
He called.
and we
this-
had the Midway Motel.
He called.
Oh.
He
He
knew
got a
people.
room for us. We had never been in bed together. I mean, it was that night was. I don't think we.
Well, that was like our wedding night, but then
Wait a
we had
minute.
2
That
weeks.
is, I never heard that story, Mama. That was really sweet. And where was it at? The Midway Hotel?
The Midway Motel.
Midway Motel.
He had a room for us,
Well, he
and
knew him. He said, "My son's."
oh, yeah, everybody knows everybody.
Yeah, but anyway, and then we had 2 weeks at the island.
Island, yeah.
We
We honeymooned at Colonel's Island for 2 weeks.
and
We had the
had a
house all to
house,
ourselves.
and so we had that, and then he left for basic. And I stayed with Mother and Daddy, spent the summer at home, and anyway,
We can take a break.
yeah.
I want to hear the story, though, about Mother showing up in 3 months in Denver. It's really
Oh,
good.
that was classic.